So, a friend and I were having a discussion in the car while he was driving me back to my house. And we were talking about cuttlefish and like how they can camouflage for any situation, even as like other animals, I think. And I was a little bit confused because when he said cuttlefish, I thought he meant nautilus. Because, I don't know, I guess I just got those two mixed up. They're very similar, except nautilus has a shell, cuttlefish has no shell. So, I was like, which one is it? And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, alright, well, I'll look it up when I get home. And so, we sit there for a second in silence, and I'm like, no, what the heck, I'll look it up now. And so, I pull out my phone, and I go on Google and look up cuttlefish. So it turns out I was right. Cuttlefish is the one without a shell, and a nautilus has a shell. And I looked up, what's so special about a cuttlefish? Well, one main thing, they're masters of disguise, like pretty much every other cephalopod. They can camouflage for anything, even though they are colorblind, which I thought was a little interesting. And then I saw a thing talking about why they're called cuttlefish. They have a unique internal shell, and it's called a cuttlebone. And so the article I was reading said that the cuttlefish is named after its cuttlebone. And I was like, well, that's confusing, because this other thing I saw was saying that that's a unique bone to the cuttlefish, and you'd think the bone would be named after the fish, because they would have found the fish first, and then named it, and then figured out that it had a bone, surely. And so I looked up cuttlefish bone, or I looked up cuttlebone, and I actually learned that it's a way to sharpen pet birds' beaks. If they peck it, and it sharpens it, but that's not important. I look up cuttlefish bone, and it comes up with... I look up cuttlebone, and it comes up with, some results, of talking about how it's unique to the family that the cuttlefish is in. Well, not the family, but it's unique to the, the species, the genus that the cuttlefish is in. And so I'm like, oh, that's, okay, so that's interesting. And then it's like the cuttlebone, or cuttlefish bone. And so what I'm seeing here is a little discrepancy, a little bit of circular logic. They named the bone. They named the fish after the bone that was named after the fish. And apparently some other cephalopods have it, and they call it a gladius or gladius, which is just a cool name because it's like the sword that the gladiators used to use. But so I'm looking it up now, and it looks like the cuttlefish, the name cuttlefish, it varies from source to source. This one source is saying that the name obviously derives from the cuttlebone, which I don't think makes sense, because another source I'm looking at is saying that it derives from the Old English word for it, which is kudele, or kuddle, something like that, and that's where the the cuttle comes from. And they're saying that it may be cognate with the Old Norse kodi, however you say that, which means cushion, and the Middle Low German kudo. I'm butchering these words, but that means rag. Apparently it was valued for its ink, because I guess it's a unique ink. So I went back and I looked at the etymology of the word cuttle again, and by looking at where it comes from, it means like bag or rag, in reference to the thing's ink sac, or possibly in reference to just the shape of the thing. It's a soft, squishy thing. So I've determined that it was, in fact, the cuttlefish came before the cuttlebone. Because why would they call the bone a bag bone or a rag bone or never mind. But why would they call it that? Because it makes sense to call it a bagfish or a ragfish. It does not make sense to call a bone a bag bone or a rag bone. That has been my very scientific study that I've conducted. Goodbye. They have these weird W-shaped eyes, but I'm getting off point. So, the cuttlebone. Cuttlefish possess an internal structure called the cuttlebone, which is porous and is made of aragonite. The pores provide it with buoyancy. The cuttlebone is unique to cuttlefish and is one of the features that distinguish them from their squid relatives. So, really, the cuttlebone is from... The cuttlebone is named after the cuttlefish. Christmas is coming up, which means... You probably forgot about this, but last year I did a series of videos, 12 videos, called the Inverted 12 Days of Christmas, which I'm just going to call ITDoc, because it's easier to say than Inverted 12 Days of Christmas. So, basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be releasing a video every day in the 12 days leading up to Christmas, with the 12th day being Christmas. And I'll release a big video on Christmas, which I will have edited beforehand so that I don't have to, bother with editing it on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. And so, yeah, I am working on some of those videos right now. It's looking like it'll work out. So, I'll see you guys at the beginning of the 12 Days of Christmas, because I probably won't release a video until then. Bye!